Bears fans around the world, Matt Nagy can't hurt you anymore. The Bears hired longtime NFL assistant Matt Eberflus.
Let's go to work.
Who just seemed to deserve a chance to be a head coach. A lot of people weren't thrilled the Bears hired Eberflus, saying they're once again leaning on the defensive side of the ball. The best NFL coach in the league's history leaned on the defensive side of the ball. By the way, how did offensive geniuses Mark Trestman and Matt Nagy do in Chicago? The one thing Bears fans like is that Eberflus will forge an identity in Chicago that's been missing since the Lovie Smith era. They just hope the quarterback position is a little better than what Lovie had to work with. After years of having a team that was long on promise but short on delivery, it's refreshing to see the upfront approach by new general manager Ryan Poles. The Bears ignored one sure way to open up their attack last year, and there doesn't seem to be much chance new offensive coordinator Luke Getsy will do the same this year. Only days after being hired as the Bears offensive coordinator, Luke Getsy made a statement while discussing why he decided to work for Matt LaFleur as Green Bay's quarterback coach in 2019.
We emphasize 11. It's 11 as one every single play. It doesn't matter if we're in the run game, pass pro, or we're throwing the rock. I mean, it's 11 as one. It takes all 11. And for a young quarterback, implementing that around him, I mean, that's huge. So if you can run the ball, that helps you in your play pass game, and you have to avoid. The hardest part of this game is dropping back to pass. It's simple. I mean, plain and simple. That's the hardest thing to do in this league. And so if you don't have to do that as often, you got a chance.
Running the ball and using play-action passing weren't a strong suit for the Bears last season on offense. It won't be that way this year with Getsy. The Bears were 31st in play-action pass attempts last year with 98. They finished dead last with 594 passing yards off play-action throws, including RPO plays. Why play fake when you're passing all the time, or you're simply not a running team? No defense is buying a play fake if they know you don't run. But that wasn't the case for the 2021 Bears. They had the 11th most rushing attempts in the NFL last year. The Bears weren't going to run play-action passes under Matt Nagy and offensive coordinator Bill Lazor last year. They did it the year before, after they went to more bootleg plays with Mitchell Trubisky and runs using outside zone blocking. They were number 4 in the league in play-action pass attempts and made the playoffs. 7 of the top 9 teams in play-action attempts made the playoffs in 2021. The Bears could be a drastically different team if they're able to make the most of Getsy's use of play-action. David Montgomery has been a 1,000-yard rusher and one of the leaders in breaking tackles in 2 of his seasons. In 2020, when he broke 1,000 yards, he was 38th in the league at most yards gained before his first contact. In 2021, he was 45th. When you're running play action, the receiver and the quarterback obviously benefit from the small amount of uncertainty it puts on defenders. It can cost linebackers and defensive linemen that half step at getting to running backs as well.
I think that the running game does for a quarterback is it gives you some breathers. And, you don't need a good running game to be a good play action team. But what you need the running game for is the physical element of the game. There's a physicality to the game that's real, right? If you're just a passing team, okay, there's a physical element to the game that the defense doesn't have to respect, okay? And that's the truth, okay? Because the data will tell you don't need a run game to play pass. You don't need that. But what the running game does for you, it brings a physical dimension to the football game. And what the running game does that the passing game does not is the running game forces the defense to play blocks and to tackle.
If they're able to give Montgomery an extra step to get moving, it'll make a huge difference in the run game. It would also help Montgomery if the offensive line blocked the run better as well. They currently rank the 28th best offensive line going into the 2022 season. Darnell Mooney has legit speed, but rarely got to show it off, instead displaying excellent route running and the ability to wiggle free from tackles. He's slippery, but he hasn't been the burner people expected. Part of the reason is that without play action, defensive backs are free to focus on the receiver without the run threat. Mooney was among the best Bears receivers at yards after the catch, but he could have been better with some cushion provided by play action fakes. He was 18th in receptions among wide receivers, but 27th in average yards after the catch for starters. The same reason Allen Robinson barely had any yards after the catch. He was catching passes with DBs all over him. They need to free up receivers, and play action can do this. Play action can help get Bears tight ends more room to operate as well. It's how George Kittle ranks so high every year in yards after the catch among tight ends. That's how Mark Andrews averaged an insane 10.3 yards after the catch in 2021 for Baltimore. Cole Kmet often hurt opponents with yards after the catch at Notre Dame. He started out in 2020 with 10 of his receptions coming on 13 play-action targets for 103 yards. In 2021, as his receptions doubled and his targets doubled, it would have been safe to assume he had more play-action chances. Strangely, the Bears threw the same 13 play-action passes his way for the entire season. What's truly crazy about the Bears' offensive brain trust last season was they wouldn't allow Fields to use play-action passes. But when he did, he was fairly effective. Fields had an average of 8.6 yards on his 48 play-action attempts, which were better than Kyler Murray, Mac Jones, Ryan Tannehill, Matt Ryan, Jared Goff, Trevor Lawrence, Tom Brady, Dak Prescott, Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, and Ben Roethlisberger. Play-action effect can freeze linebackers and defensive linemen for a split second as they try to determine if the ball was handed off. It would also help the Bears' offensive linemen with pass blocking, and Fields would no longer become a sitting duck behind blockers that allowed the league's most sacks last year. The Chicago Bears have been cursed at quarterback for generations. The team hasn't had an elite signal caller since Sid Luckman led the team to 4 championships in the 1940s. They've suffered through decades of brutal performances at the position. Fields was the 11th overall selection in the 2021 NFL Draft.
Are you ready to be a Chicago Bear? Well, let's go, man. We are so excited.
But barely saw any first-team reps in camp, mainly because of a promise made to the quarterback the Bears signed before picking Fields, Andy Dalton. Fields is going into year 2. Fields went into his first season as a backup to Andy Dalton, but was thrown into the lineup after he went down with an injury early in the season. Fields retained the starting job for most of the year, and while he flashed potential, it was basically a season full of disappointment. He completed only 58.9% of his passes for 1,870 yards and 7 touchdowns. He also threw 10 interceptions and was sacked 36 times, while winning just 2 of his 10 starts. He didn't have great numbers last season, but let's look at what he was given to work with. The offensive design wasn't built around Fields' skill set, so it's a miracle that he was as good as he was last year. Fields led the Bears to wins over the Lions and Raiders, and put the team in winnable positions against the 49ers, Ravens, and Steelers, where a controversial taunting call cost the Bears the game. Offensive coordinator Luke Getsy's play calling alone should help Fields improve. It's been reported that he seems more confident coming into this season as the unquestioned starter. Now, pretending the Bears did nothing to help Fields this offseason isn't accurate. They've implemented an offensive scheme built around the quarterback. They've made him the starting quarterback right from the start, which is a huge deal for his confidence. And what's better for a young quarterback than a defense that gives you a short field or a special teams unit that puts you in a good position? Some analysts are picking Chicago to possibly be the worst team in the league. Personally, I have higher expectations for this team and Justin Fields. First off, you want Justin Fields to develop as a quarterback. The Bears are going to keep going to him over the next 3 years, and he's going to shake some bad habits and take a step forward, like Josh Allen did in Buffalo. The steps forward he took in his second season set him up for an incredible third season, where he became recognized as an elite NFL quarterback. Can Fields break the Bears' quarterback curse and unseat Luckman as the top quarterback in franchise history? Time will tell, but Fields should be on his way by the time the 2022 campaign wraps up. As for the Bears being possibly one of the worst teams in the league this year, the Bears should be very competitive this year, given their defense and what appears to be a manageable schedule. Could they challenge for a playoff berth this season? We'll see. Hey, thanks for watching. I hope you liked it. If you want to hit the like button, subscribe, I'd appreciate it. Stay tuned for the next one.